Welcome back to Morning with the Mayor. I'm your host, Robert Dye, coming to you live from definitely a comfy chair in my home with a cup of coffee here in Farmers Branch. The hope is to give you all a deeper look into our city by talking with city staff, community partners, and special guests to discuss a variety of topics of interest to our community. Our sponsor today, whether they know it or not, is Native Coffee, a local coffee shop on Alpha Road on our east side. Frequent them pretty often, so I figured I'd just give them a shout out, especially as we're trying to remind people to shop local. But today's episode, which is episode 3, which couldn't be more timely, is with Metrocrest Services CEO Tracy Eubanks. Tracy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's good to have you, and I know that you're extremely busy right now, so very appreciative that you were able to carve out some time for us to have a discussion. But from time to time, I like to joke that I grew up on page 13, square H4 in the old DFW Mapsco book. But can you believe that Texas map stores are selling old copies of these for $44.95 online right now? Who do they think they are?
These are collector's items. This was a great product for many years, and it will never go away. There'll always be collectors.
Yeah, we had one in every single one of our cars growing up, and I just wanted to, make reference to that because I know you helmed that company for many, many years, and so just wanted to, throw that out there. But jokes aside, you're kind of a homegrown boy, at least from Texas, and I know you went to Newman Smith, but tell us a little bit more about just kind of growing up in the area and a little bit about your family and what keeps you here local.
Sure. So I'm a native Texan, born in Longview, Texas, in East Texas, and my parents are born in Longview and never spending time there, but great community, loved it. A lot of family members still there, enjoy it. My dad was a college professor, so he was the smart one in the family, the first college graduate, and got his bachelor's, and he got his master's, and he got his PhD. We traveled from UNT to Rice to UT Austin to the University of Georgia for a number of years as well, which was great. Kind of where I grew up was in Athens, Georgia, and it was an awesome experience growing up on a college campus. So I'm always interested in anything relating to colleges and would love to retire near a college campus. We moved back to Carrollton in 1978, and I started 11th grade at Newman Smith High School. And that's how I got settled here. And I essentially, outside of a couple of years in New York City, have not left.
Well, I'm not going to hold Newman Smith against you as a R.L. Turner graduate, but I'm fond of all the high schools in the school district. They do an amazing job with our kids. But a lot of people probably don't know this about you, but apparently you're a very talented handball player as a 5-time national championship. And how did you get into that?
Great question. Certainly one of the questions you didn't alert me to.
Nope.
So my dad played handball at the YMCA's. He was always an athlete, and I used to go watch him as a kid. Handball is that game you play on a court like racquetball, but it came before racquetball, and always was fascinated with it. I always did everything athletic. And so when I was 15, my dad started taking me with him to the gym with his buddies, a bunch of old guys, my age now. And I got serious about it, and we started going to tournaments. Our family trips were all about traveling to tournaments, and I played in college. I graduated from UNT, but I was the number 1 player at UT Austin when I was there.
Okay.
And I played my whole life and have won some, yes, and have enjoyed it. But it's been a great experience. I love the people that are involved. And one little known fact is I'm currently on the board of the United States Handball Association.
Okay.
Out of New Mexico. So that's kind of my non-professional board opportunity, which I took recently. So thanks for asking.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. I can sympathize with you. I remember, asking my parents, after I got out of college and was starting to travel for myself, why we didn't take more trips as a family and more vacations growing up. And they like to remind me that, going to all your soccer tournaments and your baseball tournaments and your basketball tournaments out of town were our vacations. And I sit back and be like, man, I guess I was kind of selfish as a child, thinking about some of that stuff. Yeah. But, is we're here to talk today. I mostly want to, talk about Metrocrest Services and the work that you're doing, the needs that you all might need, especially during a very difficult time, which we're all kind of going through right now. But to just kind of get an understanding, a little background, how did you get started at Metrocrest Services?
You alluded to MAPSCO. I was at MAPSCO from 93 to 2010, and we moved to Addison, relocated the business in 2000. And I immediately got involved with Metrocrest Chamber. I was on the board in probably 2001 and met Bunny Summerlin, who was running this place before I got here at Metrocrest Services, and was asked to be on their board. So I was on the board of Metrocrest Services for 7 or 8 years. I was the chair at least once. And so I got really engaged with the organization, loved the fact it helped the community in which I grew up, where I was living, where my kids were in school. And then when Bunny retired, I was on the board to help find her replacement and realized that it sounded a little bit like me, and we just sold MAPSCO. And so I thought, what a great opportunity to give that a try. And it's been the best experience of my career for sure.
Well, you've done a great job at the helm, but let's dive into a little bit more about the organization and some of the services that you all provide for people that don't know. And then a follow-up question to that would probably be like, what other NPOs do you partner with to provide additional wraparound services for the individuals that you're helping?
So, pre-COVID, I would tell you, if I was giving you a tour of our facility, that we really focus in 3 areas. One area is that basic needs, that crisis-driven type service, like food, rent assistance, utility assistance. People typically come to us because of a crisis. They're about to be evicted. They're a senior who's at home and the water's been turned off. It's a mom with kids with no food. And so someone says, call Metrocrest. And so they come see us for that. And we help with that crisis. We try to make sure they understand we're going to help you. You're our neighbor. We're going to find a way. You're not going to be evicted. We'll get the water turned back on. You're not going to go without food. But then we also think about what can we do to help you become more independent, not have to come back again. So our model is all about self-sufficiency. So we go from the basic needs of let's solve that crisis to what can we do to help you with financial literacy, building budgets, spending plans, credit score management, how to be banked properly, how to pick a bank, all the things relating to finances. So much of us, we never learned in school. So no matter what our income or education level, rarely did any of us take that budgeting class. And the third thing that we do is workforce. So we want to help you if you want to find a better job and make more money, help you connect with a high quality employer. We help you with your resume, get ready for the job interview, help you with clothes, haircuts, transportation, break down all the barriers that would cause you not to be ready for that interview. And we also will send you to Brookhaven College, for instance, for education, certifications. We'll pay for training, help you with your GED, whatever it takes to make sure that you have the greatest opportunity to be self-sufficient, to be independent, and ultimately live the dreams that you had that may have been extinguished for a bit.
And I've liked that you've always used the phrase, we're not a handout, we're a hand up, to kind of help lift people out of some of these situations that they found themselves in, and whether it's something that they can help or not. You guys have always been there. Doesn't matter your age, where you're from, or anything. If you need assistance, you guys have always been there to open your door and help with that. And considering the kind-heartedness of which your organization operates in, during your tenure, what has been the greatest challenge that you face, not just now, but I'm thinking prior to what we're facing right now? What has been the greatest challenge, keeping Metrocrest Services going, open, and being able to serve as many individuals in this community that they can?
I think for me, the every nonprofit is going to tell you they don't have enough money. Yeah. So that's always the number one thing. Every nonprofit is going to say we don't have enough money to do what we want. So that is always a given. I think there's 2 things that come to mind for me. One is, I was a more of a business guy, not a nonprofit guy. And so one of the biggest challenges for me was when I first joined the organization in 2013 as CEO, is that I didn't really know how to run a nonprofit. And it is different. The passion that people have for their mission in nonprofits is extreme. You're working not just with employees, but volunteers, and volunteers don't necessarily care what I have to say. And so that was a little bit of a challenge for me. But I think in general, one of the big challenges most nonprofits have, we've had it to some degree, it certainly is embedded in our industry. is nonprofits have a tendency not to think big enough, to accept their situation, to say, whoa, me, I'm a nonprofit. I'd like to do more, but I don't have the money. And we decided that we try to flip that a bit so that we focused on raising money so that we could do more. We've grown substantially the last few years. We're serving more people in greater ways, more in-depth ways than we have in the past. And so we don't want to use the fact we're a nonprofit as an excuse not to do great work. And I think that is a cultural shift that we've continued to make, and other nonprofits are making as well. But it is one that's common in the nonprofit sector that, we're a little nonprofit. We can only do so much, and we feel we can do better.
Yeah. And you talked about your funding sources and that every nonprofit says they need more cash, but what are some of your greatest partners outside of our cities, especially the Metrocrest cities of Addison, Carrollton, Coppell, and Farmers Branch? And I do want to give a shout out. I think Carrollton, stepped up big last night, and has provided another 200,000 for y'all. I know my city has stepped up, and we added another 150, and I think you're going to see some more contributions come out of Addison and Coppell during this time. But what do you feel, or I guess who are some of your biggest partners, and where are some of the areas that you might want to look to focus, or some organizations that you might think should be involved that haven't been?
Right. So I think going back to a question you kind of alluded to earlier in terms of partners. So we have the service partners, people that we rely on. So we do what we do really, really well, we think, but there's some things we don't do. And so we work with people like North Texas Food Bank, Woven Health Clinic. We work with Essilor, which is based in Farmers Branch, CFB ISD, Brookhaven College. So they do a lot of great work. And so we're able to work with a family, and maybe we help with one thing and they help with something else to kind of move them towards self-sufficiency and what their goals are. From a funding perspective, we've always believed in a very diverse funding pie here. We don't want to be reliant just on one funder, either one city, any government agency, any foundation. And so we get money from a lot of different places. Government would be one. Cities are very supportive. We have great partnerships with Carrollton, Farmers Branch, Addison, and Coppell. We're a United Way partner. Only about 2% of our budget's United Way. We get money from the federal government, but it's a small amount, about 2% of our budget or less. Yeah. We don't get any state money. So the bulk of the funding we get is from local individuals, businesses, civic groups, churches, the community. I mean, we're a community private nonprofit, meaning we were created by the community. We're not faith-based, we're not government. We're here for everybody. And so we find that everybody wants to contribute, either financially or with their time as a volunteer. We're always looking, one of the things that we are challenged with in a suburban nonprofit is convincing foundations in Dallas that we actually have poverty here. Sometimes they think poverty stops at the Dallas city line, and it obviously doesn't. So our development team, our grant writers, do a great job of making sure they understand that the levels of poverty and need, food insecurity, homelessness now is high and on the rise, and that we need support. So we're working really hard to make sure that we ask a lot of our community. We want to make sure that others around us, like in Dallas, also support the mission, regardless of the geography. The need is here, and we're not ashamed, as you know, to ask for help.
No, and that's what's great. And in terms of giving time, I've met a lot of the individuals in all of our communities that have been great backers of your organization and contribute quite a bit of resources. And as a bartender at those events from time to time, it's fun to meet them and thank them for what they're doing for our community. But you talked about dreaming big. What would be what's dreaming big in terms of what's next for Metrocrest Services?
If you'd asked me this pre-COVID, it would be a little bit different. I think right now we're so focused on what's next as it relates to what we call a resilient recovery. We want to make sure we're ready. We don't want to wait until people need help with workforce that we haven't really planned yet. But I would say that we would like an expansion of self-sufficiency services, such as helping people find jobs, helping people go back to school, help improve training opportunities. And I think because of COVID, we're going to see a rapid increase in our focus in those areas and rapid increase in funding. We're already beginning to look at where could the money come for those things that may not happen for 4 or 5 months from now, but who would typically not be attracted to us as a funder that will going forward. And so I see that changing pretty dramatically. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, most people who come to see us, they come through the front door with a crisis. Our goal is to make sure they come through the workforce door at some point saying, I hear you guys have a great workforce program.
Yeah.
I want to improve my job situation before the crisis. And so we're not there yet, but I think we're getting close. And I think that's what's going to change for us as we grow. We don't want to be big just to be big. We'd love to be small because the need is small, but we want to be big enough to make sure that we can say yes to anybody that walks in the door that has a crisis. Because again, these are people in our community. I literally see my neighbors in my lobby. When my daughter in high school watches our videos, she'll say, I go to school with that person. So it's real for us, and we want to make sure that we can say yes. And that's our goal every day.
That was one of the most shocking things, talking with you in the past was the conversation of, this isn't just a certain segment of our population. This spans more people than you would imagine, neighbors, friends, family that you wouldn't know are using Metrocrest. But it's great to see that they feel comfort going to y'all, that you treat them with dignity and allow them to get through their times of need. And one of the other ways that we've kind of looked at reaching out to our community and to other areas of an underserved population, I think of, the conversations we've had in the past where we talked about, what would make a difference right now, who's not being served. And that's where we came up with the idea for the Safe and Sound pilot program. And I just wanted to get an update because, that was a program that, Farmers Branch kind of led. And, we wanted to help especially kids in our school district or in basically just in our city that are in school that are homeless, on the brink of homeless, or somewhat in the throes of that, whether it's not a traditional form of homelessness, but it still counts. Getting them into a stable situation and back on their feet so that this isn't a problem that the child has to worry about, and they can focus, not only on their schoolwork, but that their family can focus on getting, their lives back on track and in stable situations. That, how's that going, and what have you learned most from this pilot to date?
Yeah. So, that program, which was an offshoot of this contract with the City of Farmers Branch, the Impacting Child Homelessness contract. And that kind of came up because we started noticing, especially through the school district statistics, that there's a lot of homeless kids. I mean, hundreds every year in CFB ISD are homeless at some point, living on a couch, living in a motel, living on a car, constantly being displaced. And one of the things that I guess is a hole in our model is that we've never really had the funding to be able to help a family long-term with rent. Paying someone's rent is very expensive. And so our objective has always been to help you in a short period of time, typically a month, and then help you with other wraparound services to kind of get you back on track for the next month. And so as we've started seeing more severe cases of homelessness and folks where 1 month isn't going to help them, 2 months isn't going to help them, this whole idea, this concept came up in discussions here internally and then with the City of Farmers Branch. And so this year, I think to date, we've served about 12 families in this program. And they're all different. Every family comes in a different situation, in a crisis, but with the ability to move out of that crisis with more assistance, typically housing assistance. And so where we're seeing wins are people improving wages, reducing debt, getting out of payday loans, increasing their assets, improving credit score. We've had stories, unfortunately, I think I saw that 4 of our families had a job, lost their job because of COVID. So we're already helping them. So they're in the system. There's a safety net for them here. Now we're working on how do we best help them to get back on track again. And I think we've got 7 more families last time I looked that are looking to join the program. We decided over the course of the year, if we were able to add about 15 to 20 families, that'd be good for data purposes. We impact a lot of families, a lot of kids. All these are CFB kids, but also see what was the impact we really had. We know we kept them housed. We know those children did not have to change schools, which is important to us. And we believe that if they don't change schools, their academic success improves. So we want to measure all that. And we have been sharing the program with other funders, not just our other cities, but we've gotten money from the Dallas Foundation, the Texas Women's Foundation, the Catholic Foundation specifically for this type of program. And so we're going to continue it in one form or another going forward.
Yeah, and that's kind of, we were happy to be able to take on this opportunity with you and this pilot to understand, is there a better way to impact situations, not only in our own community, but to build a book of work, a new program that you guys have worked on that we can hopefully see success start to happen in other communities as well. Because I know that personally, we've seen some successes. You guys have shared some great stories with us. And one of my favorite stories was when Victoria came to address us at City Council, and she talked about the young lady that was going to one of our high schools. And unfortunately, I think her dad got sick. Her mom was trying to take care of the dad. Medical bills were stacking up. Grandma had to start dipping into her retirement funds and I think go back to work. And the young lady in the high school dropped out to work as well to help this family. And after putting them into the program, getting them back on track, back on their feet, understanding budgeting, they were only not able to get into a stable housing situation. Grandma no longer had to work. I think the mom got to go back to work, and the daughter, the one that previously dropped out of high school, went back to high school.
Right.
On path to graduate. And I mean, you just hear stories like that, and the ability for us to potentially help break the cycle and get this girl to get her high school diploma, and who knows where that's going to lead next and what that means for that family. You can see that having this longer body of work, as you say, being able to focus with families a little bit longer than 1 or 2 months is having impacts. And I would love to see where that data goes when we get to 15 families. Is this an additional program that we keep looking at that then we can take to Carrollton and Coppell and Addison and then a lot of the other businesses and say, hey, we're seeing real impacts here. This might be something you need to take a look at as well with expand the reach of this program. And so just want to thank you for, taking that on and the efforts you and your team are putting into this 2-year pilot to, see what kind of impacts we can make, especially for those that are vulnerable and don't ask to be put in some of these situations that they're in, such as the kids in our community. But with our community, fully in the throes of coronavirus, what's the current status of Metrocrest in terms of the number of people you've been helping, not only from like the last month, but what did it look like year over year, so that people can understand the gravity of what we're facing and what this looks like, and we can kind of paint that picture of how many people you guys are helping. But I'll ask a follow-up question after that once we get through that. But it's more of, how does this, and I know you kind of just started in 2010, but how did this kind of relate to the Great Recession in terms of the impact and needs, so that we can maybe be able to compare some of that if you have those numbers available. But how is this so much more different than that time as well?
Right. So, certainly in the last 6 weeks, I guess, we've been not overwhelmed, because our staff does an amazing job of adapting, but the numbers are staggering. Just think about the week of March 16th. That was the week we started really tracking COVID. When our people come in here saying, I need help, they're almost all saying, I was laid off that week. And these are the most vulnerable in our community. These are the folks that typically don't have a financial safety net. They're working the cleaning jobs in houses, buildings. They're working at restaurants and hotels. They're folks that have a low wage and no assets typically, and are upside down on their own personal balance sheet, right? And so they come in needing help with rent. And they have a little bit to contribute, but we're having to contribute a lot more. So typically in April of last year, for instance, we served about 75 families with rent assistance. We'll probably serve 375 to 400 this month. And the amount we're assisting them with is higher because they have less to contribute themselves. And when we get into May, it's going to be real interesting, because we're going to have more people coming in. A lot of folks didn't come in April because they had the ability to take care of April. And we had a lot of employers who told employees, hey, just wait a couple of weeks, we'll get you back. And that hasn't happened. And so some folks are just now accepting the situation. And so May, we're going to see more people and having to contribute more.
Yeah.
So that's the concern on that side. Of course, with rent, it's just all about cash. Monetary donations is what we need to be able to make sure someone stays housed. And the bulk of these families have children. The other area is food. So housing is one, food is the other. We've gone to a drive-through pantry. And so we've, I think versus year to date versus last April, we're up about 213%. But just for instance, 3 weeks ago, we were serving about 4,000 meals a day out of our pantry. Last week, it was 6,300 meals a day. After 2 days this week, it's over 8,000 meals a day. So it keeps growing. So if you pulled up out back, you'd see a tent and a line of cars typically, and great employees and volunteers out there making sure that each family member has a week's worth of food. That's going to continue growing. That's a monetary issue in terms of having enough money for food, but also it's a sourcing issue. You can't watch the news without seeing a story about the lack of food availability. The whole food supply chain is disrupted right now.
Yeah.
And so we're having trouble finding food as well. So the community has been great about donating the specific food items that we need for our boxes to make sure that we can keep up with the pace. And we have so far, but this is going to be a long road. May will be a lot worse than April from our perspective. June will be worse than April, maybe not as bad as May. We won't see any leveling off until at least July. And I don't know when a decline will come, honestly, for us. The people that we serve are not going to be hard back first. And a lot of these companies are going to right size, and they're not going to bring people back for a variety of reasons. And so it's going to be a difficult time. We hope that with unemployment benefits and the stimulus check, that will all help some. But, if you live in a motel, you're not protected by the no eviction rule. If you're not fully don't have full status as a citizen. You might be on the path, but you don't have full status. You don't get any benefits. And so we have a lot of people that don't have any safety net, nowhere to turn, no one to get help from except Metrocrest Services.
Yeah, I think, you talk about the way the number of meals and the number of people that you're helping has just been accelerating. And you think about what the messaging was with coronavirus in terms of, we got to flatten the curve. We got to flatten the curve. What can we do to help, stabilize this situation? And it seems like that you're almost in a similar situation that's an unintended kind of, consequence of what we're all dealing with when we think about the larger community, and the fact that, in previous recessions, in previous periods of our times in the United States, at least within the last 100 years, outside of the Great Depression, people that are the most affected right now, and the most vulnerable, still had an opportunity to work. I mean, you're talking about your service employees, the hourly workers, and those individuals now are being forced to stay at home with no opportunity to essentially earn cash, which is expounding, or I guess, just multiplying the effect of this, the situation that we're in and with our economy and what we're facing. And, I look at that as, I would just assume, when we look back 10 years ago, to the Great Recession, right when we were right in the middle coming out of it, that, y'all weren't hit as hard. You were probably hit, but it wasn't to this level. And seeing as this is kind of ramping up and more people are in need, because you read the stats that 75% of Americans can't go 2 to 3 weeks without a paycheck before they're dire. They're in tough times. And so, when you think about the state and, cities starting to focus on opening up our economy, how do you see that playing out in terms of people going back to work? Because we're not just going to open up in 2 months and everyone's just going to be back, and we're going to back to what the normal was, 5, 6, 7 months ago. It's going to take a longer time. Like, restaurants aren't opening to their full capacity for a while. A lot of these service industry jobs aren't going to be opening to those levels. So, how do you see that playing out in the continuation for support, 6 to 12 months out?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're going to see a variety of things happen. A lot of businesses won't reopen. So there's lost jobs just in that. As you said, if you're a restaurant or retailer, you can start opening, but you probably won't hire everybody back. Your business levels of income, your revenue won't be high enough to justify it. And so I do believe that it'll be a very slow roll as we reopen the economy. I think the public is we have new habits.
Yeah.
We've gotten used to not going into restaurants and to ordering even more online. And so I think it's going to change the way we consume product, the way we purchase product. And so some of the folks that were in one industry may not be needed in that industry anymore. So there's going to be a change. Maybe training is going to need to be a big part of what we do as a community, as a city and a state. We feel like the folks that we're assisting are going to probably need assistance for the next year or so, many of them, just because reopening the economy, no matter what that means, it's going to be a very slow roll, because that's what the government's probably going to do, make it slow roll. But then we as consumers, the public, are going to be slow to roll back to our old habits. We've gotten used to being at home. I hate to say that, but some of us have gotten, some people have gotten used to being home. You've adapted. You can work at home now. We have the technology. We didn't already. We now have the technology to work at home. We're all Zooming. We're all doing all kinds of things we didn't do before. So it is going to change. I think in the end, a year from now, the economy could be very strong, but I think people that were working in one sector are going to be working in other sectors because we've changed.
And I mean, in terms of that change, and you talk about, being, working, allowing people to come in, and what's the workforce, readiness programs that you have, and y'all's work with, one of our community partners, Brookhaven Community College.
Sure.
How do you see that ramping up and changing quickly and being on top of, what do we need to do going forward to make this available to people, and be in that new way that we all operate in terms of, is training, physically at a location, or now are we trying to help these people from afar where they're zooming into classrooms to get that training and that, maybe that certificate or whatever it is they need to take a step forward in their career?
Yeah. I think, Brookhaven and DCCD they're great partners. They're very nimble. They obviously have a passion for helping the same people that we're helping. And so I think the change will just be that there will be fewer barriers for someone to get an education. There'll be more opportunities for certifications in those areas that are going to be in great demand. Typically, you can find a way to go to college without any money, and I think you'll find a way to go to college without any debt for a bit as well. And so I do believe that a lot of the folks that we help will have an opportunity for education and training and certifications that they never had before, because not only are we going to say we're going to help you pay, Brookhaven is going to say we're not going to charge you. It's going to be promoted widely throughout the country. I think the community college system is going to be a benefactor of our recovery, a big piece of this recovery, honestly.
So what's your greatest need right now? And I know that there's a lot of people out there that really and truly want to help. What would you recommend to them, to those that want to make a difference?
There's still three ways to help. We always need money. We always need funds to be able to pay rent, buy food. We have overhead here as well. We have social workers, whole team of social workers and others. And I do want to say, our employees have been absolutely incredible. This has been a stressful situation for them. It took a week or two for us all to adapt to our new normal, but now they're so proud of being a part of something like this. And so they're an amazing group of people. So I always need cash. You go to our website, metrocrestservices.org, and front page, of course, is COVID, and you can look at our urgent needs list. That will list food items that we're having trouble sourcing from other places. And then the other thing would be volunteering. While we have a lot less volunteers and we're spacing them all out, we've got multiple locations now, so groups are working separately. We still need people. We like to only have people that are not in any of the at-risk categories.
Yeah.
But you can go online and sign up. We'll send you an email with some shift opportunities. It might not be this week or next week, but ultimately, we're going to be doing this for many, many weeks, many months. So if you want to volunteer, it may be difficult this week or next, but we'll get you in. And we need that help because our staff can't do much more. And we're trying to give our staff, we made a commitment, as I may have said earlier, we're not laying off anybody, no furloughs, no wage reductions, none of that. But people need a break. And so volunteers give our folks a break.
And so, Tracy, appreciate where people can go to help. Again, if you look on the screen right now, you should see the link. It's metrocrestservices.org. That's where you can go to sign up and find those opportunities that Tracy was discussing. But, in that last answer, you said the word proud. And, I personally want to know, what's been your proudest moment during your time at Metrocrest Services?
I'd say certainly just getting hired by Metrocrest Services by someone who didn't think he was qualified. And so, giving me this opportunity, I ran MAPSCO for so many years. I thought, well, that would be what way people remember me as the MAPSCO guy. And this is so much better and so much more fulfilling. So, we, in the last 7 years, my anniversary actually is this month, my 7-year anniversary. We've accomplished a lot. And I think the culture here is what I'm most proud of is we have people that love being here. They believe this is a great place to work. They're focused every day on helping people. There's no selfishness here. There's no profit motive. There's nothing else except just giving back. And I'm just proud to be a part of that. Just to be an employee here among many great people and great volunteers. So I'm proud to be a part of this. For as long as they'll keep me, I'm enjoying it.
Well, we're proud of what you've accomplished and what you've been able to contribute to our communities during your tenure. So really and truly appreciate your hard work and efforts. But this next piece is a few quick, just kind of rapid fire questions that you were definitely not prepared for. Just a few things that I wanted to ask that, short answer, just get to know you a little bit better as we kind of wind this down. But is Dirk Nowitzki your favorite Dallas athlete because his dad was also a world-renowned handball player? And if not, who is your favorite Dallas athlete?
You got it. You nailed it the first time.
Nailed it the first time. Okay. And so I do know that I believe there was an ownership of a bookstore. And so I want to ask, favorite movie bookstore: The Shop Around the Corner, The Travel Book Company, Monsieur Lebacy's, or Flourish and Blotts?
I've not seen any 4 of those, so I don't know how to answer that.
Well, Shop Around the Corners, You Got Mail. The Travel Book Company was...
Oh, You Got Mail. I love that.
Yeah, Notting Hill.
Yes.
Monsieur Lebacy's is from Hugo, and Flourish and Blotts is, of course, Harry Potter.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not smart enough to know these things.
I don't know. I find it more encouraging that you're not sitting around like me, just watching all these movies and memorizing small details like this in them. I should probably be focused on bigger and better things. But what is your favorite or craziest fundraiser that you've been a part of, and why?
Craziest fundraiser? That's a great question. I know at one point I was involved in some sort of skeet shoot, which
Okay.
I always thought was a crazy idea, but they do make some money.
And especially in Texas, they make a lot.
Yeah.
You got some people that'll come out of the woodworks that you didn't know were involved in an organization when
Yeah.
one of those things pop up. So
Yeah.
always good to help bring people out. But the final quick question: one thing you wish people would understand most about the clients of Metrocrest Services?
They're just like us. There's no face of poverty. People coming in today, especially during COVID, are folks that never ever thought they would ask for help. People probably that were maybe critical of people that asked for help, that are here today because something has happened that they could not control. And so I want people to know that people who are struggling economically, being poor. I don't like saying being poor. I like saying economically poor, because these are folks with robust, rich lives that I can't begin to imagine. They just don't have as much money at this moment, and they need some help, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, and that's amazing, and we can't thank you enough. With so many other shelters and NPOs having to close their doors during this difficult time, and you all finding a way to not only keep your doors open but expand the opportunities and the number of people that you're serving is truly a testament to y'all's heart, y'all's organization, and y'all's main focus of truly giving back to give people that hand up. And so just want to thank you for that, for your leadership, and thank your entire team. For me, I know it's not just me; it's our entire city council and our staff and our residents that love what you all do and what you all bring to the table. And just want to thank you for
Yeah.
being here with me today, taking out some time. I know it is extremely busy in your world right now, but just want to say thank you for that. And
Thank you very much. I enjoyed having the break. This has been great.
been good. But, I do want to thank everyone for watching Mornings with the Mayor. I'm Robert Dye, and just want to say be sure to tune in next week where we'll be having a conversation with Allison Cook, our Director of Economic Development, and John Land, our Deputy City Manager, diving into more of kind of what's happening economically in our city, especially as we're looking at this time, future development and growth out into the future of Farmers Branch. But until then, stay safe, stay home, stay positive.